Well, MVPs step up in the most valuable of times. Man who very likely to win that award this year for the regular season. After a first half, his team didn't necessarily play as well as they had liked. The Pistons had a lead. Came back with authority, vengeance, and put a finish on a series and set up a rematch we will break down in the next hour as we'll hear from both coaches and players and more. Welcome to Game Time Live here at NBA TV. It is playoff coverage. The Bucks sweep the Detroit Pistons. They are out of the playoffs. Casey Stern, Sekou Smith, Coach Tibbs, Mr. Blocker Charge, Rex Chapman. Guys, when you sit there, Rex, let's start with you. When you look at where we were at halftime and all we talked about, but the importance of closing it out. What did you like that you saw from the team collectively and their leader and best player Giannis in the way they played in the second half?
I think they didn't panic the whole game. Stayed in it, kind of grinded out the win. This is a team that's played well all season long. I think they expected to win this game. You also had to know that Detroit was going to come out and throw a pretty hard punch, but they answered every bell. This is a fun team, and I can't wait to see this next series. Coach,
I know you love when you get your tone setter to be your best player. How about the aggressive nature in which Giannis went to the basket and almost that statement he seemed to make every time he had the ball of we are not going to play again against each other in this series?
Yeah, no, it's a strong message to his teammates. I think when you make plays like that, that does nothing but unite and inspire your team. And you get a lot of confidence from that. And he sets the tone for the team on both ends of the floor. Multiple effort plays defensively, and then offensively, it's just attack. And it gives everyone confidence.
There's a dominating nature, Sekou, and I was talking about the MVP, and you study that as much as anybody. There's a dominating nature about the way James Harden plays in the second game of our doubleheader, in the way that Steph played. But when you talk about dominance, and we think about Shaq who's down the hall, is this as dominant a force in the aggression, the way he plays, that you've seen or covered since we're talking about going back to that time period in the size and the athleticism and the way Giannis is playing the game?
Well, only because I think Giannis is even taller and covers more space than LeBron does. And LeBron, to me, has been the most physically dominant attacking player we've seen in a generation. Giannis is 24 and building a reputation of being that type of guy who can cover the ground he covers and is as physical as he is. I interviewed Giannis down the hall when he was a rookie. He wasn't as big as my left leg. I mean, he was. Charles saw him in the hallway and greeted him and punched him in the chest playfully. I thought he killed him. I mean, that's how thin and just slight his frame was then. Now you look at him now, he looks like a bodybuilder, and he's covering half the court in 3 steps. I mean, this is something unique, and we're seeing it at the takeoff in terms of him being a superstar talent on both ends of the floor. And he might be, in short order, the most physically dominant, no offense, Joel Embiid, the most physically dominant specimen we have in the league.
Talk about a generational talent, a guy who's got a great story, great person, work ethic. I mean, we talk negative all the time in the age of social media. You should champion everything about what he represents as an athlete. Giannis, after the sweep of the series with our own Jamie Maggio.
But the Pistons led the entire first half of the game. You guys seem to flip a switch, though. With 4:35 left in the third quarter, you go on a 17-3 run. What changed for you guys? What clicked?
I think we just kept our composure. We kept playing hard. Of course, the Pistons set the tone really early, and they played great basketball, and that's what they're supposed to do. But I think we kept playing hard. We kept moving the ball, and we just stuck together because we know once we get the lead, they're going forward.
You know, you mentioned composure. Yes. That's something that your coach has been talking about throughout this series. Talks about being steady and consistent. This team, the whole season, where does that come from?
You know, I think it comes from training camp. We're working our habit. We're working our mentality. We got to stay fresh mentality-wise, because each game is going to be harder, and we got to be ready for that.
Well, it's an exciting time to be a Milwaukee Bucks fan. You guys win your first playoff series since 2001. Up next, you're going to face the Celtics. How do you approach that series?
The same way we approach this series. We're just going to play together, play hard, and try to advance also.
Congratulations on the sweep.
Giannis in the locker room, making sure to let everybody know, okay, congratulations. We did it take about 3 minutes because we got a rematch we got to talk about, which we're excited to talk about. Nothing disrespect at all about the Pistons, and we'll talk about the great job Case has done with that group. As, by the way, this has become now like with the brackets in March Madness, where you like write yourself in. What a job by Coach Bud. This team defensively, it's one thing to coach, during the regular season, we talk about seeding, right? Does it matter? Does it not? But they played like a 1 seed in this series, right?
There's no question. They've checked all the boxes all season long. And having the best record is important because any Game 7 possibilities you want on your home court, they came out, they made a statement in the first round, they were dominant throughout, and they've earned it. This is, the numbers tell you how dominant when you look at scoring margin, defensive efficiency, offensive efficiency. This team is very well balanced.
Yeah, we'll talk about this as we go on, and we'll hear from both coaches, players. We'll look ahead to the next series. It needs to be said. Look, people have gotten on Blake at times in his career. Is he tough enough? And all sorts of stuff. You got to hand it to him. I mean, he could barely. Leonard Fassi, this is no joke, the injury he's gone through. Rex, what did we learn about him in the way he was playing? Considering every time you looked at him between plays, it looked like he could barely walk from A to B.
He didn't look well in the last game. And I really, before this game started, I was like, if he doesn't move any better this game, I don't know why you trot him out there. It showed me a lot. I know that there was, you got the social media buzz. Everybody's questioning you. I appreciate what he did out there tonight. Let's just remember, you guys know how Kevin McHale limps around here, right? Yeah. Let's just remember this when Blake's limping around one of these days when he's 50 years old. This was what happens when you go out there and you play. You try to play through things. Sometimes it'll catch up with you.
And look, I don't think in any way that Coach Case and his staff were hanging about to dry, but he felt himself out at one point, I think, because he was done. Couldn't get it done. And look, this team fought. Give them credit. They could have gone away in the first quarter, they did not. But, I mean, you just don't have the same kind of ammo, especially if you don't have Blake at full throttle.
No, but this is exactly why a couple weeks ago I was arguing with people on social media when I was praising Brooklyn and Orlando for making the playoffs. And people were like, well, why would you want to just go and be mediocre or get trounced out of the playoffs? This is what you see when a team has the pride in their business that Detroit had. They scrapped. I mean, they could have laid down in this game and just got blown out. They scrapped until they had nothing left. Reggie Jackson played his guts out. I mean, some of these guys went out there, competed as hard as they possibly could because these guys care about winning in this league. I think it's crazy for people to assume that players don't want to win every single time they go out. I mean, every time they hit the floor, they're trying to win. They know they're overmatched. You don't think Detroit knows this is a 1-8 series? They understand that, but that's not going to change the fact that they'll go out there and leave every ounce of what they've got on the floor to try and win this game. Nobody wants to get swept. Blake Griffin doesn't want to go out like this again. Another injury taken away from his opportunity to compete, at the highest level. So I got nothing but love for Blake, and I hope he doesn't end up being, physically impaired later in life. And we know that's probably the case. The guys are going to play until they basically injure themselves. And they'll do it because they love the game and they have a fortitude about them to go out there and give everything they've got. So to me, effort, energy, the Pistons and Blake Griffin, you salute them. And they clean out their lockers in the morning and move on. But that's just the nature of this business.
Yeah, I would say to see these guys in the back having covered every day. I've watched the guy who's one of the greatest players ever in baseball, and Albert Pujols, just past Babe Ruth and RBI. The whole end of his career has been this way because he can barely walk because of the plantar fasciitis. You got to get in their own way, but as you know, Coach, athletes, you can't get in their way. Look, 26 assists, 10 turnovers. They shot 38% from three. I mean, there's got to be a sense of pride in, look, you're outmanned, but they did a lot of the right things tonight.
There's no question. They fought for 3 quarters, and their margin of error was very small. They would have to play a perfect game, and Milwaukee would have to be off in order to win, and they would need Blake fully healthy, playing at his normal level to even have a chance. But I think for Detroit, this was an important first step for them. And people forget the steps that you have to go through. It wasn't long ago Milwaukee was getting drubbed in the playoffs. And that last year I thought they gained confidence going to a Game 7 with Boston. And this year they made a huge jump. And that's sort of the progression that teams go through. So I think this was a good learning opportunity for Detroit. I think they'll take a lot away from the season. And it'll help them going forward for next year. This is how you build your culture. It's done year after year, day after day. But getting to the playoffs, I think, was very important for them.
You know, something we're going to talk about as we break down, Rex, this next matchup, which will be a rematch of last year. And we'll see. Yesterday, we were here for those who joined us. The Celtics were very, very open and honest about their excitement to play in that series, the compete level against the team that's been the best. So I'm curious to hear, now that the series is over and the look-ahead questions can be answered, what that's going to be like. Depth is going to be key, especially when you've got Rozier and Hayward and those guys on the other side. Depth showed up big for Coach Bud in this series.
Just
after
like
the
to
sweep.
start by recognizing, Dwayne Casey and his coaching staff and their players, the work they put in this year and in this series. Have the ultimate respect for them and their players. So, really respect Dwayne and his group. For us, I think the way we, kept our focus. Our defense in the second half responded. They threw a heck of a half at us. They were phenomenal. They came out as we expected they would. And, Reggie Jackson, I think 20 in the first half. So, but I think hopefully, we responded in the second half, especially defensively, and our defense usually fuels our offense, and got out in transition, played, in some situations where we like, and, able to get the win and move on.
Giannis was getting fouled a lot, going to the line a lot. What do you think about the way that he was able to persevere and kind of absorb that contact and just keep going through it?
Yeah, no, that's when we get stops and then we can get out and run and play in transition. Those two things are, I think what give us our best chance. And it starts with us being better defensively and then everybody running and playing with him. And when he has opportunities to either share it with his teammates or get to the rim, and he takes a pounding. But I think he's built for it, and I think he was great at the free throw line in the second half. We struggled as a team in the first half at the free throw line. So, Giannis was special tonight with 41.
I know there's been moments throughout this series where you guys have not been happy with your pick and roll defense on Reggie Jackson. It kind of looked like the same way in the first half. What do you think the difference was in the second half?
Well, I thought Bled, was really, really good in the second half. He just took it to another level on both ends of the court. The first half, Reggie did a lot of different things. He scored some in pick and roll, but he hit some spot up threes. He hit, has the follow dunk to end the half. If you went back and looked at his 20 tonight, at least, it didn't feel like as many of them were in the pick and rolls. It was just a lot of different ways that he scored. And but I think second half, just generally speaking, we were better. Bled was better, and I think it was reflective in our overall defense.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. But we've talked a couple of times over the course of the season just about balancing the celebration with the idea that you guys are working for something a little bit larger. That being said, this is a significant milestone. The first time you guys have gotten out of a first round since 2001. How do you strike that balance in this case in particular?
Yeah, hopefully well. You never know. But, I think organizationally and for a lot of players that have been here for, a significant amount of time, this is, to advance, to have the regular season that we've had, to now, take care of the first round and move on to the second. I think it's important that we take a second tonight, enjoy it. For the players, they'll probably take a day tomorrow and enjoy it, and coaches will kind of move on and start working on Boston tomorrow. But I think organizationally, our fans, our city, everybody, it's a good night for Milwaukee. It's a good night for the Bucks.
Well, there's a sequence in the third quarter with you guys trailing. Thon gets called for a reach on Giannis. There's a technical. Free throws go in out of a timeout. Pack gets a steal and a dunk. I think there's a three by Nico in there, too. Looking back, does that feel like a critical sequence? Because after you took the lead, it felt like foot was on the gas from then on.
Yeah, I think that was a critical sequence. I felt like Bled's, made 3 out of the post up when it was 10 and took it back to 13. I felt like we got a stop in another basket. There was, that one, and I thought Bled's 3 just felt like it was a big one that, they're trying to find ways, I think, to guard, Giannis in the post, guard him in, as he attacks the basket. And Nico hits a 3, Bled hits a 3 off of double teams, and that's when we're at our best. Giannis is great about attacking, and then when teammates are open, he shares it and they make shots.
Can you get in a rhythm with your free throw shooting? Like for Giannis, he works on it all the time, but he's not necessarily as consistent with the free throw shooting. But today, he was 15 of 20. Is that a rhythm thing for him?
Certainly, him getting a lot of attempts is going to help him with his rhythm, and he got comfortable. I don't know what he was in the first half, but I just know overall we weren't good, and felt like he made them all in the second half, and he was getting there a lot. So I do think, you keep going, and especially you're making them, you feel good.
How much did fouls play into your strategy in the third quarter, specifically with the Pistons coach, Dwayne Casey, getting a technical foul, the fans seeming to not appreciate the calls by the referees, and also the foul trouble that the Pistons were in that it seemed like you tried to take advantage of?
Well, we just played. We do what we normally do offensively, and Giannis has the ball a lot, and he attracts a lot of attention. There's a physicality that comes with that, and I think that they were going to throw a lot of physicality at us tonight, and at some point it broke a little bit, and we were at the free throw line a lot, and different guys were in foul trouble, and I thought we played through the crowd, we played through whatever refereeing. I thought they did a good job, in a game that had a lot of physicality in it.
In the third quarter, Brook went to the locker room. Seemed like he had a back issue. Just what does it say about him, the way he was able to come back in the fourth and really anchor your defense?
Yeah, no, it's definitely concerning. He just felt like something in his back just wasn't quite right, and credit to our medical staff to go to the back and get him where he felt good. He said he was ready to go, and he was a big part of another stretch where he just felt like he blocked several shots consecutively, and we got out and played off those blocks, and he's been doing that for us all year.
But earlier this season, we also had a couple of conversations about just slow starts and coaching against that. It seemed like that might have reared its head again tonight. What do you do to kind of combat that going forward?
Well, I think give Detroit credit for how they started. I'm not sure we were at our best, but certainly Detroit was very, very good. And the playoffs are different. I think our guys were ready. It's just Detroit was better than us coming out of the gate. But credit to our players for just kind of maintaining a steady approach. And, I think that's going to be key for us. We just got to keep our focus, keep grinding on teams, keep trusting our defense, and hopefully we can turn it if we don't start well.
I know every team wants to go 4-0 in the first round, but do you feel like it meant something to have a very real test at second half, angry crowd, like all of those things? Do you feel like that really will help this team going forward?
I'm sure. You're on the road, you're in a hostile environment. For us, some players to experience this, it's great. We got hit a couple times in this series. Detroit several different times played really well for long stretches, and that's just going to make us better as we go forward.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, this is Coach Mike Budenholzer, very well might win Coach of the Year. Did a terrific job with this team, and it's a whole different look, even though it's the same series as one that went 7 a year ago. Giannis used differently in the offense. Obviously, Eric Bledsoe, the depth, a very different Celtics team as well. That whole Kyrie is there thing, and Hayward, who's been activated. We were talking about the depth of this team. George Hill, for example, who take plus minus for what it is. This isn't hockey, but at 29 in 19 minutes, that's telling and stands out. And I know, Coach, you like what you saw from him in this series. They're going to need veteran guard play when you've got Scary Terry and Brown and all the names they throw at you, even if Marcus Smart isn't able to be available, which it remains to be seen. For me, he will be sitting there, like, even if there are like tubes and stuff, he will just be dragging stuff from the doctor's office into the court. But that depth really showed out this week.
Yeah, I think Hill and Ilyasova give them a lot off the bench. They're really starters who come off the bench, and people forget how good of a player George Hill has been in this league. And really the only thing that has slowed him down at all has been injuries. And so if he hasn't been injured, he's always played at a very high level. But his shooting, and again, he's another player that really complements Giannis well. So I think when you look at the guys that they added to the team, whether it's Ilyasova, a Hill, a Brook Lopez, a Mirotic, their shooting ability opens the floor up for Giannis to penetrate. And that's really what I think makes this team a lot different.
Sekou, we just sat here and watched the series. The coach and I were watching the final game yesterday, and Al Horford is like one of these guys. They need a Horford stat for where there aren't stats. For the hockey assist, setting the right screen, just so many important things for that team on the floor. But he's going to have an important role in this idea of slowing down or finding a way with Giannis. What about that matchup? What about Al, the KG vet, in this whole thing? How much are you excited to see kind of how that plays out in this?
Look, it's a tremendous matchup, and think about how important he was, Al Horford, last year against Joel Embiid. To be able to single up on Embiid and contain him as well as he did, he'll have to try and duplicate that against Giannis, who's a much different player and, to me, a much tougher cover for Al, because Al can rely on some of his low-post defensive fundamentals against a guy like Embiid. Giannis is coming at you, and he's shaking you up off the dribble, trying to get around you and past you. If he puts Al Horford in some foul difficulties, who does Boston have that's going to be able to come off of that bench or shift over from another position to guard Giannis up by their lonesome? They don't have another player on that roster, I think, that's going to be equipped to do it the way Al can. So that makes for Al's importance being, quadrupled in this next series, because to me, Boston's greatest gift is the quality of their depth and the fact that it's so versatile. You can deploy different guys all over that front line and then on the perimeter defensively. We know what they can do on offense, but it's how versatile they can be defensively, to me, that makes them as dangerous as they could possibly be in a postseason setting. And they're going to go up against a team in Milwaukee and a player in Giannis who will push you to your limits. And Al will be chief among that in terms of trying to slow down. I'm not saying stop. I'm just saying slow down Giannis.
And if anything, almost like Harden, the second game, you want to pick your poison, right? You want to do. We were talking about Coach Belichick. Hey, look, we're going to try and put you in a position to force Middleton, Bledsoe, others, and they may, to beat us. But from the Celtics side, they're dealing with a different Bucks defense. And I wanted to, because Rex is our defensive, he was going through some film earlier. When you look at the defense, that has been a big change. And they play collective, they communicate well, they play team defense. You're going to have their hands full. And that second unit's going to have their hands full, because you're talking about a Hayward that we saw yesterday who looked as good as we've seen him since he's come back, and good to see from the injury. Not good to see, though, if you're sitting there trying to figure out as Coach Bud, how do I get my second unit to defend him?
Right. These are two of the deepest teams in the league, and probably the two deepest in the East. I do think that they're going to have some bodies to throw at Giannis. You've got some versatility there outside of Al. You can put Baines on him for little short stretches, but then you can throw those Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown at him a little bit. It's going to be an interesting series, and it's going to be really who's going to impose their will, and what's going to happen. This is the big question for me. What is going to happen when these Boston Celtics, who've had a little bit of consternation in the locker room this year, when they face a little bit of adversity, what's going to happen? Can they regroup and band together in order to make a real deep playoff run?
Something that was talked about from Coach Bud there, and we'll hear from Dwayne and players on both sides as well as we continue here with you, was talking about grinding it out and kind of staying together. One thing we talked about yesterday, and it really about Ebled specifically, they could frustrate, the Celtics could frustrate you. Kyrie could sit there, the whole play could get screwed up, and he does his, put you in that I need Dramamine scenario, and you could try and force something going the other way and getting that back and forth. How important is it to try and stay composed when it's going to take that team effort because of the individual talent that may weigh as a group, not Giannis, but as a group, towards the Boston side in terms of their depth?
Well, I think Boston, you have to remember, they've gotten to the conference finals the last 2 years, so they have that experience to draw from. I would say the biggest challenge for them will be when Giannis is racing the ball up. There's going to be 20 possessions that are basically him coming at you full steam, and then Boston is great because they're tied together. And you have to slow him down between half court and the three-point line. You can't, if he generates that speed and he has a seam, he gets into the paint and he'll cause a lot of problems for you.
Coach Casey, such a fantastic job with the Raptors all those years. Great first year with the Pistons. Here he is after a disappointing finish.
Dwayne, as the finality hits, what do you think this team took from this series?
Well, first of all, congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. I lost my voice. But they did a great job of setting the tone of how the series was going to be played. I think our guys took away how hard you have to play to compete at this level. And just like tonight, they got to the line 41 times, and Antetokounmpo had 20 attempts. He had made more than our entire team. So that means he was taking it there with force, and I guess we were fouling him. So that's a big discrepancy for me. But again, we learn from that. We take from it how hard you have to play, the intensity you have to play with for 48 minutes. And I think that's something that will help us next year going into the season to start through training camp and have this understanding of the physicality you have to play with.
Dwayne, can you talk a little bit about Blake Griffin and the ovation he got and what you got from him in terms of effort this year?
Well, Blake played his heart out with basically one leg, and he gave everything he could to our team. He fought through a lot of pain, swelling, just so he could support his teammates. And I think we were in sixth place when he started experiencing the swelling and everything, but he kept with it, kept playing until he couldn't play anymore. He gave everything he could to our team. And without him, we wouldn't have had a chance to make the playoffs. So he has meant so much to our team. Just his presence, his physicality and his style of play. He did a great job of transforming his game to a perimeter game plus a post-up game, and to get ready for the new NBA. And so we owe him a lot as far as what he gave us, the leadership he gave to the young players. He just gave a passionate speech in the locker room about how proud he was to play with those guys and the future that he sees with the young players coming through.
Coach, Pat just asked you about Blake Griffin getting injured down the stretch. I wonder, have you had a chance to think about perhaps like a what if Blake didn't get hurt? Because certainly he wasn't the guy that you saw for most of the season, and obviously at the end of the year, it cost your team a bit of seeding as well.
It did, but I would say without him, we wouldn't have been as close as we were to sixth place. Because the first part of the season, he really carried us up and, even through after the All-Star break. So woulda, coulda, shoulda, he brought so much to the team. His presence, his leadership, his knowledge, that's one thing that helped us so much. His knowledge in certain situations. But like tonight, he shot, 2 free throws? 2 free throws. The way he's attacking the basket, I got to go back and watch the film. But for him to shoot 2 free throws and Antetokounmpo 20, so that's a huge discrepancy for two players that's going to the basket, going to the rim. in an NBA game.
Coach, what is the number one thing that you're going to take away from your first year here with the Pistons as you move forward?
Well, I understand. I have a better understanding of what each player can do and can't do. And also, too, this is going to be a huge summer for our development coaches and ourselves to develop the weaknesses of some of our players, because we're going to have to grow from within. And so we have a lot of talent with our young guys, but they have some areas where they can get much better in. I learned that. I learned the competitive spirit of certain players on our team. And again, I really, really appreciate the way they fought through a lot. Losing Blake for those games. We lost Ish for quite a few games. We lost some tough games throughout the year. So I learned what guys can and can't do in those situations in close games.
During the third quarter, it seemed like the game got away when Milwaukee started to get to the free throw line a lot, and it didn't seem like you appreciated the whistle based on your technical foul in that third quarter. I wonder if with that and with the crowd kind of egging the team on with the ref chants, if you thought that perhaps there was a way that they could have handled that situation better with the...
I don't know if we could have handled it any better. I mean, in that situation, they were getting to the line. I don't think it was anything that we were doing wrong. Our top players were in foul trouble, so they had to come out of the game. So I thought that set the tone in the third quarter for us. I don't think it was anything with poise or lack of poise or anything like that. Again, we're not playing against chopped liver, but when we have Andre Drummond in foul trouble, Blake in foul trouble, everybody that we're looking over there, Luke Kennard getting all his fouls. We had a lot of guys that were in foul trouble in that stretch. And lo and behold, that's when they went on their run.
Pistons gave everything they had in the first half and really fought as much as they could. As I said, didn't really turn the ball over that much in this game. But you look at the differential, and a lot of that was the aggression and the tone set, especially in that fourth quarter, by the very possible MVP, depending upon if you agree with where Sekou is on the ladder. He and I would both need one to reach Giannis. When we come back, more analysis, and we'll hear more from the players.